Hey, everybody. My name is Aaron Shane. Welcome to Habitat Now. It is my honor to have you join me for February's NGG Not Grandma's Glass presentation. I am joined today by Kwun Lan Wong. She was born in China and she is still in school, and she's already got our attention because we're excited about her work, and her future. So I would like you to sit back, relax, and I'm going to go ahead and take over your screen and start going through a little housekeeping, what's going on here at Habitat. So we just got back. Well, first of all, foremost, our Zoom buttons are up here. Click on this little hamburger, and you can click on our Zooms every single Saturday at 1 o'clock. If you can't get the link or you can't find it, you can always email me, but I always hide them under this little hamburger thing. We do these Zooms every Saturday at 1 o'clock. If you're around, join us. If not, watch them on the replay. If you're watching on YouTube, like, subscribe, hit that bell. Give me some feedback. I'd love to know who you want to hear from. We can do this all year long. It's a lot of fun. The Habitat cruise is getting filled up for, I think they're leaving in September, going through Europe, exploring and seeing institutions and museums and galleries. It's visiting artists. It's a pretty incredible time. If you want to be on this cruise, contact me or Sue and Al Weiner. We'll get you the details. So we just got back from Florida from our Glass Coast weekend and our Glass Art Fair. It was a spectacular time. We had so much fun seeing everybody and getting together. It felt like SOFA again, just having everybody hang out in one place. We had over 22 artists, 24 artists on site. Clients came in, and we had a great time with Philip Baldwin, and he was our guest speaker, had a solo show, and went to the Chihuly Museum, a little fun there, taking some photos at that place, and went to the Dolly Museum, went to the Imagine Museum, and then we did the Sarasota Art Museum as well as the Ringling Museum and the Ringling College Gallery. So it was a lot of fun. And then we honored Barbara Bash and did our first what's it called? A fireworks soiree. There were no fireworks. We gave speeches celebrating Barbara and Richard Bash's efforts for involving glass in the Sarasota area. And we sold tickets, 200 tickets sold for $10 a pop, raising $2,000 plus for the college. And we met all these new people who didn't really know much more than what Barbara has to show about glass, inviting them into our world, and got all their emails. So we're going to have a great time reaching out to this new clientele base. It was a lot of fun. The weather was great. People were great. We're going to do it again in 2025. So mark your calendars and we figure all that out. So we're talking about the international now, which is the next big thing, which is already coming up. It's in May 1st through the 5th. The invitations were kind of sent out digitally. We're still tweaking the details, but we're looking forward to seeing you there. It's in Royal Oak. We're going to have a lot of fun. This was last year's show, just a glimpse of the floor. You're going to get some red dots in the mail that you can bring with you to the show, something new, something different. So make sure you put them in your pocket and spend them all throughout the gallery. Another auction, of course, and then we're having Cooking with John Miller at the Flint Institute of Arts. And something exciting, Stephanie Trenchard's having her first ever glass class. So she's putting together a glass, so you're going to be painting on blanks and kind of her style of work. The class is more expensive than Deanna Clayton's in the past, but there's a lot more to it, and you get a beautiful sculpture. I think the class is going to be around 300, 350 or something per person, but it's got to be worth it. Then we're going to Flint, the FIA, to look at their fragile bodies and figure in glass and clay collection. And we're going to be viewing a private screening for Paul Snicker's new documentary done by Dan Collins, which you've seen all over social media. It is, I have had a glimpse at it. It is an incredible thing, and I'm so honored to have it, the Flint Institute of Arts streaming. Okay, so it's going to be fun. Join us in May. All right, so now on to NGG. I'm grateful to learn about Kwun today and learn about her work and her career. So without further ado, I'm going to have you take over the screen, Kwun, and say hi to everybody.
Okay.
So Kwun's work I discovered at one of the auctions. I think it was probably Pilchuck. And
Yeah.
I thought the piece was very interesting and right up NGG's alley, and wrote to her right away. And she was very interested in participating in NGG this year, and is our second participant for 2024. I'm looking forward to this. Well, thank you, Kwun. Thank you so much.
Okay. Hi, everyone. This is Kwun. I'm a glass sculptor from Hong Kong. Obviously, English is not my first language, so please bear with me. Most of my works are narrative based, and today I'm going to tell you the stories behind. Before I jump into my work, I'd like to introduce myself a little, then we'll talk about some of my early work, my current research, and my upcoming show. This is Hong Kong, where I always call home. I was born and raised in this tiny city that holds more than 7 million people. It is a very unique place that is slowly fading away. I got my bachelor degree in 2018, major in visual arts in Hong Kong Baptist University. I didn't learn about glass blowing until my final year in school. I was more focused on metal sculptures. Besides learning about how to make art, this place taught me how to stand up for a place that we love. The campus of Academy of Visual Arts is the former Royal Air Force Officer Mess. With its unique 20th century colonial architectural style, it is a Grade 1 historic building. Unfortunately, the government was trying to take this beautiful campus down, relocate us into a different location just for money. Then the picture on the right here happened. Students and professors went on protest to show the government and society value of a place is not just on money. They had a fundraising by selling artworks, and then they successfully raised enough money to rent the campus for another 10 years. So we can protect this historical building for another decade more. Even things changed in the past few years, I'm still very proud that I was part of this community. These are the words from my former mentor in college. He told me action creates inspiration, and I always keep that in mind. With the word of wisdom and luck, I got a job working as the one and only glass studio tech and TA in the university I graduated from. The university I studied in was the only place that has a hot shop by the time I finished my study. I had never thought of having glass as my profession until the previous shop tech asked me to take over his job. And this is how my glass journey started. We have glass blowing, casting, and kiln forming classes while there's only one professor and me in the glass department. I learned a lot within that 2 years, from assisting classes, managing studio operation, to actually building equipments. I basically learned everything by researching online and YouTube. It was a very busy time, but I'm so grateful to have that opportunity back then to build up my problem-solving skills and confidence in working in a studio. While I'm busy working in a studio, I also took advantage of summer and winter breaks at my job to develop my own body of work. I applied for a scholarship and traveled to the US whenever I can to learn from the people I used to research on YouTube. These are the people I took workshop from, and they're very important individual for me. Not just as a young emerging artist, but as a young adult that is figuring out her path. I don't have time to introduce them one by one, but I at least have to give them a credit. Jane Violet and Rasmus Nosbrain introduced me to the hot sculpting world. Robin and Julia Rogers, they helped me to build up my connection in this community. Karen Rillenbeck Johnson and Jason Johnson, they taught me how important it is to focus in the moment and communicate with your team in the hot shop. Claire Kelly was my first inspiration on hot sculpting. The first thing I ever sculpted is the glass elephant she used to make. Raven Skyriver and James Devereaux taught me how to move efficiently while working in the large pieces. Kelly Odell is just an angel in my life that showed me the importance of trusting your team and be the one that worth the trust. I was told I should not put so many different people in my artist presentation, but without them, I'm incomplete. I'm so grateful to meet these people in my glass journey, and they gave me the power to move forward. With all the things I learned from them, I started to seek for my own voice in glass. 2018 summer, this is my first ever hot assemble piece I made. The shop I work at didn't have a hot torch or a garage, and I was not allowed to use a reheating chamber or assistant. Technically, I should not even have my own blow slide, but I did it anyway. This is the piece that I tried to get a feeling and the rhythm of solo working with just a furnace, a kiln, and a mat gas. And from here I realized I want to tell stories with my work. Don't Cry is fine. It is my second glass sculptures. The first time I committed suicide, I was 13. I have anxiety and depression for almost 15 years now. I get on and off of my medical cycle. Sometimes it is hard to feel your emotion with all the medicine I take. It was a rough time that I had to get back on my medicine after a year break. So I made this work for myself as my own therapy, telling my inner child that everything will be fine. Tears doesn't mean weakness. I like using animals in my work. They work as a metaphor or a symbol. Deer for me is a sign of guidance. I always consider myself as a lucky person because I was technically not allowed to have blow slide at my job. So I used to sneak into the studio to blow glass after midnight to 4 a.m. by myself and start working again the next day at 8, along with my 2 other jobs in the weekend. I was exhausted every day, but I was happy. I had a relatively stable income, had all the resources I need. Whenever I have a question, I know who to go to, and I still figure out a way to blow glass. I feel like I'm living in a dream. I can do whatever my heart told me to, and I know there will always be someone I can trust to guide me through this journey. Time passed by very fast. This was a year of changing. I decided to leave home in 2020, and this is the last work I made in Hong Kong. It called Why Don't You Come With Me? Whenever I tell a friend that I'm gonna leave and go to the US, they always wish me luck in my journey. It is very hard for me to tell them the thing that I wanted the most is not the word of blessing, but company in a foreign land. Or maybe I was actually wanting someone to tell me to stay. It was a struggle within myself. I don't want to go, but I don't know how to say it out loud. So I made this work of me pulling a stubborn rabbit walking against the wind. From this point, I was still doing solo work for all the pieces. To make sure I can achieve what I want to do, I used to draw out every single steps one by one. I like to be prepared in the hot shop. With this practice, I can pretty confidently say my work nowadays usually look pretty similar to my drawings. The first place I went to is the Chrysler Museum of Art. I reached out to Robin and Julia when I was very lost in Hong Kong. Then I ended up spending a memorable 6 months at the Chrysler. I can't be more grateful of this opportunity that opened up a lot of possibility for me. I made a lot of works when I was doing my assistantship program there. Those works got into different exhibitions, and this one specifically won a prize and brought me a residency at the Pittsburgh Glass Center. This work is about my relationship with my parents. Like a lot of typical Asian family, my parents don't like me doing art at all. But because I'm a very stubborn child, I'll do anything to make my own dream come true. I gave up everything in Hong Kong and blow glass in America. This work called I Want to Make You Proud. I know I'm not a perfect child, but I'm trying my very best to make you proud. Fake it until you make it. I'm still trying to. And this is one of the work that I made when I was at Pittsburgh Glass Center. When I was a kid, I had a moon-shaped music box next to my bed. Maybe because of that memory, I always feel safe and peaceful when I see the moonlight. I decided to leave home because of the complicated political situation in Hong Kong. I still count Hong Kong as home, but I don't have a plan or way to bring myself back there safe and sound yet. I have been traveling a lot, and sometimes I feel like I pack my soul in a suitcase, carrying on my dream and passion in glass without a place that I can actually settle down yet. And I wish I don't have to face the reality right away, so I could stay calm and cozy in my dream on the moon. This is another word that I made during my residency. My dad used to told me bedtime stories when I was little. He told me in the adult world, it is like a bunch of sheep. The one that run too fast or being ahead will be eaten. The one that walk too slow, falling behind, will get lost. The only way to keep yourself safe is to hide inside the flock. So I won't be alone or eaten by the wild wolves. I made this work to remind myself to stay humble around people. It is my reminder to myself when I was going into grad school. And here is where I am now. I was accepted to grad school right after my assistantship at the Chrysler. I'm now in my third year in the glass program in Southern Illinois University. Grad school changed me a lot. In our first year in SIU, we have something called a one-week project. It is a brainstorming exercise that you have to come up with a new idea every week. It needs to be a new idea, a different way of art making, and professionally present every single time. This exercise lasts for 10 weeks. It really breaks me down and changed the way I usually think of my work, and I started to try something new. In My Island is my first work after all those one-week projects. For the most of the time, I find myself struggling and trying to find a way out. I start to think about the meaning of the form of characters that I made. What does each color do in my work? And why do I choose to do things in a certain way? It was an overwhelming thinking process that I felt isolated in my own world. I see these pieces as a experimental work that I try to take away the parts that I'm not sure about, like why the figures needs a human body, why does it needs a colorful palette. I took all those away, only keeping the facial expression and focus on the body gesture. It is hard to say I'm fully satisfied of the outcome, but it was an inspiring beginning of a new body of work. I Thought You're Listening Now is now a permanent collection in a gallery in Bulgaria. I was focusing on human relationship at that time, and I thought a lot about the anxiety I have when I'm around people. And I try to visualize the struggle. This figure doesn't have eyes in his eye sockets, but all around his head. Is aware of the surrounding as if someone is going to harm it. It does not trust anyone else except you. It is telling you a secret. You are the only one it is willing to tell and trust. But now you're gone, so it better hide and keep the secret to itself. The tangled and interlocked limbs show the indecisive and wavering mind of this character. I was trying to show the audience how I feel about human relationship without putting my own face in it. I'm very interested in how body gesture tell a story and how people could resonate to the emotion with just a simple form of a character. As I started to think about my work in a more in-depth way, at the same time put them into actual words. And this is the statement I had at that time. My glass figures manifest the words I leave unsaid in my intimate relationship to avoid communicating verbally. Self-disclosure is a crucial part of any intimate relationship, and yet, in my culture, revealing your true thoughts is a dangerous act that exposes your weaknesses. This work is hanging from the ceiling, walking on a wire. This is how I feel about glass blowing. You trust the people you work with 100%. It sometimes sounds very sketchy. but with the faith I have with these people, I can walk on wire without my eyes. As long as you hold my hand, I know I'll be safe. And after all those deep thought about emotions and relationship, I switched my research a little so I don't drown myself in my own thought. This monster you see here called Lo Ting. I made this during a summer class with Raven Skyreaver in Pilchuck. Lo Ting is a half-fish, half-human mythological figure that was originated in Hong Kong, my hometown. From this point, I started a new research chapter, which ended up to be my thesis research now. Hong Kong is a small place that was a British colony for 99 years, then handed over to the Chinese government in 1997. I was born a year before the handover. I lived my whole life when Hong Kong was in its post-colonial period, which I will explain more what post-colonial means later in the presentation. I use Lo Ting, the mythological character in lots of my work, as a symbol of Hong Kongese. The use of Lo Ting all started with an art history paper I wrote in my first year in grad school. This character first appeared in a book of monster called Xiao Shen Gei during the Eastern Jin Dynasty. In that book, it said Lo Ting lived in the Hong Kong area with a fish looking. When they cry, the tears become pearls. All the sorrow and regrets of Lo Ting ends up to be valuable pearls. Time moved on. This creature was mentioned again in a book that's about the living style in Guangdong area, which is where Hong Kong located. In this book, Lo Ting image is more clear. It looks like human with a fish tail, scared of people, and would hide in the water. Until this point, Lo Ting was just a half-fish, half-human monster that lived in the Hong Kong area. There's no connection between Hong Kong identity and Lo Ting yet, not even a drawn image. Lo Ting was still an imaginary creature that no one knows how it's supposed to look like. And things changed in the contemporary world. The avant-garde movement from the Western world brought impacts to Hong Kong artists in the late 20th century. Artists created artworks and exhibit regarding the Hong Kongese identity and the handover in 1997. This was a print from a Taiwanese artist. The text on the right basically said that something tragic happened to the Hong Kong people because of the handover. They lost the freedom of speech and were thrown to the sea because of careless talking. They then turned into Lo Ting, stuck in the middle of the land and sea. And they will live their tragical life like this forever, no matter how hard they cry. This artist gave this fantasy creature a new context. It was no longer an author imagination based on their curiosity about an exhausted land, but a symbol of Hong Kongese. He built up the story consciously to describe the circumstances of Hong Kongese from a third-person perspective. Hong Kong does not belong to the Britain or China. We are struggling in the middle, just like Lo Ting. A Hong Kong curator, Oscar Ho, then held an exhibition about the history and identity of Hong Kongese, challenging the official history of Hong Kong presented by Beijing. Ho invited 97 Hong Kong artists to express their thought on the Hong Kong handover in the exhibition. He suggested Lo Ting was real, and Hong Kongese are the descendants of Lo Ting. A life-size Lo Ting sculpture stood on a long canvas with some rocks on the ground. It stood in front of a print of old Hong Kong. Ho recreated Lo Ting and at the same time rewrote the history of Hong Kong. He said he extended the imagination of Lo Ting based on the true stories and memories in Hong Kong. He confused the audience with this exhibition and brought up the unresolved identity of Hong Kongese. I didn't really understand what was that struggle when they were talking about until 2014. There was Umbrella Revolution in Hong Kong. It was a protest to fight for true, fair, free election. We asked for one man, one vote. We want our right to vote for the chief executive, not just sent by the Chinese government. That protest ended up with a lot of tear gas. And obviously, that didn't work out very well. But that's enough to wake Hong Kong people up from the post-colonial dream to realize there is a decision to make, not going back to the British or follow the Chinese. The real question is, where does Hong Kong belongs to? And in 2019, there was another huge protest in Hong Kong, with more people, no main stage this time. No people gave down orders. No one tells you what to do. We were fighting for the extradition law that Chinese government trying to put into Hong Kong. There was tear gas, real bullets, and water cannon trucks. All we have is umbrella and some bricks. That was my whole summer in 2019. This protest lasted for 7 months. I was running for my life when the government was trying to kill us all. That was the point I started to understand the struggle Oscar Hall was talking about back then in 1997. That was the point I realized we are loathing that got abundant and stuck in the middle. I started to find my own definition of home. When I was running in the protest, there was a tear gas chute right next to my left leg. That moment, I know I do not belong to this land anymore. The government was actually trying to kill us, leaving no space for us to return. I have to go if I want to survive. After the protest in 2014, we came back for another one in 5 years. There was still space for us to fight for our freedom. This time in 2019, after the protest, most of the people left, and I came to the United States. My desire to find the community to call home grew stronger and stronger since then. The unresolved Hong Kong identity aggravates my insecurity and bewildered feelings when interacting with people. My insecurity is not only because I'm very far away from home, but noticing the difference between my foreign friend and myself. Yet there is no going back even if I don't fit in this foreign land. Also through the daily interaction, how I realized the Hong Kong part of me is slowly fading away. Using loathing as a metaphor of Hong Kongese, I tell the Hong Kong story in my eye. I am constantly finding a place to call home and find a sense of belonging. The community I feel most comfortable to trust and feel like I'm part of them is the people I work with in the hot shop. Our strong connection on the hot floor gives me enough courage to tell my story about home in glass. This loathing is holding two puppets, talking to each other. Because it cannot talk, no one understands its word. That is how I feel when I was tired and Cantonese, my first language, just slipped out my mouth. No one understands my word. I made this word just 2 years ago, but last year when I was traveling with my friend, she told me I was sleep talking in English, which shocked me at the same time, makes me realize the Hong Kong part of me is really fading away. That scares me. I tried so hard to grab on my Hong Kong identity. What if after all, I just blend into the crowd and become one of the people surrounding me? This piece is the beginning of me trying to tell my Hong Kong story through loathing, and surprisingly, people around the world seems to be interested in the story. This piece was selected to be shown in the S12 gallery in Norway and the Pilchuck Auction, and that's probably the reason why I'm here telling you my story right now. Not only that, it also brought me an artist residency in Glass House in Belgium last summer. I was there for 2 months focusing on the loading series I want to make and get a feeling of how I want to tell the story. My friend James Staffrow came all the way from the UK to Belgium to help me to put the works together. And now I'm gonna briefly show you some of the works that I made during my residency. And each of them are telling a different story. Tap your red shoes 3 times and say the spell, "There's no place like home." They will bring you back to where you're from. A brain, a heart, and courage. Sometimes I wonder maybe I don't have them all yet. That's why the magic doesn't work. I tried those shoes on, but I'm still stuck here. Take me to the advantage that needs to be fulfilled, that magic. So one day, when I say that spell out, I'll finally be where I belong to. You said I'm in a free land that I could call it home, but you don't understand that I don't belong here. I do not and will never fit in. Please let me stay as weird as I have to be until the time slowly turn me into another ordinary one. You said you'll wait until I'm ready to come back home. But sorry, I can't keep looking back. I have to move on. I'm fading away with my soul. With a bag of water from home, I'll be fine for a while, but maybe not long. You're a lot more like the others now, but sometimes it is hard to see yourself becoming someone else. I hope you don't feel ashamed when you look at yourself. And this one is a permanent collection of the Glass House Museum right now. Submarine has a lot of meaning to me when people talk about submarine. It is not a safe place, and definitely not a place to find comfort. But for me, it means home. I have only made 2 submarines in my life. This is the second one. Lo Ting is sinking into the deep ocean in a submarine, hoping to find its people. The fish traveled all the way to find Lo Ting and keep it company in the darkness while seeking a place to call home. I was having a hard time during my residency, and my friend came all the way to help me without asking anything. Friendship is like a lost and found game. The more I travel, the more I'm amazed by the fact that we both travel all the way just to meet each other in this big wild world. To complete the story, I have to show you the first submarine I made. The political situation was not the only reason I left home. My mental health was at the worst in 2019. I couldn't stop hearing voices when I was alone. Yet I didn't want to be with anyone. Most of the time, I felt like I was sinking into the deep ocean that I couldn't escape. It is hard to explain that struggle and fear. At one point, I wished to end it all. That night, I drew a sketch of a person inside a submarine, desperately watching itself sink into the bottom of the ocean. It didn't die immediately with the production of the submarine, but it's just a matter of time though. I decided to make this piece in glass as my own therapy, just like all my artist work. My first attempt at the piece didn't work, so I try again, ask for more help. Most of the students show up that night. I was not allowed to have my own blow slot, so I waited until everyone left to start my practice. To be honest, I had no faith in making that piece happen since we didn't have a hot torch and I was still very new to glass at that time. That night went surprisingly smooth, with a lot of sweat and laughter, along with the rioters' attention alarm from the street. That was the moment I realized these people were my submarine that I could rely on in the insane world. They kept me company no matter how deep I sank. I watched everyone get on taxi and left and went home safely that night. That was the first time we blew glass together. Also the last blow slot we had in that hot shop. Protest continues on the next day, and suddenly the world stopped. That night defined my definition of home. Home is when you're with the people you trust. No matter how bad the situation is, I always keep the words from a friend of mine. No matter how far you go, I wish you could always find the one you're willing to bother. I'm technically away from home, but I don't feel that lonely with the people I'm with. I'm still finding a I'm still finding my way in the deep ocean with all my fear and anxiety, but my heart found its home. And with all those, I came back to school and started to work on my thesis show. I don't want to go into too deep of the detail of the show yet since my show is not up yet. But hopefully you get a feeling of what I'm trying to say with my glass figures about my Hong Kong identity and my feeling of home. Now I'm going to show you some pictures of the work that I'm working on right now. Besides glass, I also make animation to explain the floating story without using actual words. And here's my poster of my upcoming thesis show. I'll be having a closing reception on March 29th in Carbondale. Come and see my work in person to feel the struggle. And here's my contact information. I'll be graduating this May, and I'm looking for any opportunity to keep myself in the hot shop. Please let me know if you have any recommendation for international students like me. I appreciate it a lot. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kwun. That was fantastic. Got a really glimpse into your life world and your struggle of what you've been through. I learned a lot, and I'm grateful for you sharing such a personal story today with our viewers. And it helps also give some grounding to your work and what you create. And it means so much. Like looking at the work I saw at Pilchuck now has so much more meaning to me than I have had an opportunity to learn more about you and your work. So thank you so much. This video will be placed on our Not Grandma's Glass page as well as on YouTube for those who missed it. Tell your friends. It's great to have such an impressive story being shared with us through the medium of glass. And it's really cool that you animate too. That's really fun to see that you actually have fun doing that. Oh, thank you again for joining me. If anybody has any questions now, please feel to unmute. Please add her on your social medias as well so you have an opportunity to see what she's up to and share the work she creates because it has incredible meaning and pushes glass into the fine arts. So it's exciting to see where you are in your career. And like you said, if you have any recommendations, or reach out to her for future opportunities here in the States. And I hope to meet you someday soon in person, Kwun. Thank you again.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Well, we'll be again together next week for NGG, and I hope to see you all real soon and share the news of this Zoom with everybody you know and love. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.